That's Government House Leader Karina Gold speaking to us moments ago after the Bloc Quebecois said today that it is beginning talks to topple the government now that its deadline for the Liberals to help pass two key bills has expired. How serious is the Bloc about bringing down the government and forcing an election? Christiane Normandin is the party's deputy leader. Hi there. Good to see you. Good of you to come into studio. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I just spoke with Minister Gold trying to ascertain, what kind of conversations actually took place behind the scenes, because she keeps referencing them as sort of regular conversations between House leaders. What can you tell our audience tonight about the substance of what led your party to this point? Was there ever a real willingness, in your view, on the government's part to do what you were asking, particularly on old age security?
Well, basically, we kind of played openly, and we gave people the playbook of what we were doing. And if we are where we are today, is because there was we got a solid no, kind of, from the government. Otherwise, we'd be somewhere else. We already have something on the table, and we gave them 5 weeks in order to get what we wanted on old age security and for farmers. And basically, what we have tonight is a government that says no to seniors and no to farmers, and that's the reason we are here. So whatever happened behind the curtains didn't work. So we kind of feel there was maybe a lack of real political will on what we were asking for, and not only us, the population as well, because we got support from the population up to 78-ish%, and we got support from the House as well. Both our bills went along the pathway up to where they were and got support from all parties at some point. So it's basically a solid no that led up to, and it's the government's fault that led up to where we are today.
And is your impression that no sticks? And I ask because Minister Gold seemed to imply that there is the possibility of conversations continuing or an openness to additional support for seniors, as she put it. Is your view that the door is completely closed?
Well, I wouldn't call it negotiation up to that point, no, because now we basically said, well, we were open to discussions with you, and we told the government that we wouldn't topple them until today, but now they're facing a stronger headwind because we're part of that headwind. So if they want to suggest something, bring something to the table, it will have to be exactly what we ask for. So that leaves basically no room for negotiation. There's still a chance. They could still do something, but they would have to do fast, because it would have to come before a non-confidence vote that we vote with the Conservatives most likely on.
Just quickly, most likely or for sure?
It depends on how they put it, because a non-confidence motion would most likely come from the Conservatives. Yeah. And we also with them, we've been clear. We kind of gave them the playbook of what our intentions are. So if they present something that is similar to what they presented in the first of their opposition motions, a very simple, very blunt, direct motion that just says, the government has lost confidence in the House, we'll vote with them. But if they want to poison it with something that is against our values as a political party, for example, if they wish to add something with the carbon tax, something anti-environment, something anti-secularism, anti-language, well, we won't be schizophrenic and vote with it. So it's basically up to them to present us with something that is very simple. Otherwise, we can ask ourselves if they're serious about really wanting an election.
So that's it. You're basically looking for a simple, straightforward, do you have confidence in the government or not have confidence? And that's something you're prepared to defeat the government over, but nothing else.
Well, that's something that we said today we'd vote with. And I think it's also a better thing if they want the support of all parties as well, because if they poison the motion with something that won't please the NDP neither, well, they give them more reasons to vote against their motion. So if they're really serious about wanting to topple the government, the simpler, the better.
You mentioned that if the government does anything, it would have to just adopt what you're asking for specifically and as is. And I'm wondering why there isn't any room for negotiation. Since your proposal was sort of the ultimatum was issued and the proposal became more broadly understood by the Canadian public, there have been some groups that have pushed back and even done their own research on how OAS, or old age security, could be amended. The formula could be augmented in order to better serve people who are on the lower end of the income scale. So, for example, one group, Generation Squeeze, looked at the idea that after $100,000 of income, you don't get old age security, and instead much of that money is reportioned to people who really need it. Like there are other ways to address issues that seniors have without, let's say, taking money from other places. Why is your party not open to something like that?
Well, this could have been a discussion way before or in the future. But since we were kind of stressed in time with a government that's on life support, if we decided to go that way, we knew that we opened the door to delays and delays and delays. And instead of that, we're just fixing what the government created himself with the 2 classes of seniors. And it was simple, and it had already gone through the process of voting in the House. It was far along the process, so it would only require royal assent from the government. That was rather easy to give. And if we decided to open the door to amendments, a new bill, we would have to start all over again, and this would have taken more than 5 weeks. So there was a question of time also, and basically we're just fixing the mess that the government created himself by creating 2 classes of seniors.
The government's justification for that is that the need is greater for the older age group because essentially they're living longer than they would have anticipated when they started saving, and their life expectancy is outstripping essentially their savings. In principle, let's say we remove the construct of time, is your party open to something like that, changing the formula, a different cutoff threshold, anything like that? Or is it just black and white, this is the only way to go?
Once again, that would open the door to more negotiations, more amendments. Parties could decide to vote differently on that. It would be basically a different bill that would still have to go through the whole process. And with the idea of 2 classes, we also have seniors in between 65 and 74 that need that extra support. And with regards to numbers, there's not that much difference between both age categories. When you look at revenues, it's something like 59% of the population over 75 that have incomes below 30,000 a year, and it's 52% of the population for the 65 to 74 category. So basically, those in need have the same level of need in a way. So, and we were basically just saying to the government, don't create 2 classes, and don't tell people in the first category that they need to go through their life saving before getting extra help when they turn 75. It's kind of cruel from the government to say that, well, if you live to 75, well, then we'll help you after you have used every savings that you put aside.
I get that point. I think from the perspective of opponents of the measure, it's the idea that this comes at a huge cost to federal coffers, right? About $3 billion a year. And I know that you've put forward that money could be, taken from, for example, the subsidy provided to oil companies that in the form of a tax credit for carbon capture, but even that won't cover it. And that's about $5.7 billion a year, in total by 2027. So I think the idea that at least the opponents have put forward is this is a lot of money for people who are, yes, in need, but perhaps not as in need as people who can't even try and get into the housing market at this point.
Yeah, but we mentioned the carbon credits, but it's not only that. It's also about making right decisions, and even on things that the government tries to present as good measures for the elderly. For example, they always come back with dental care. This is expensive as well, but it's not necessarily that well managed neither. First thing, we get a lot of phone calls in our offices from people complaining about the fact that it's not well put together, that it's still costly for seniors. And when you look at it, they've used $2 billion that is sent to Sun Life, a private corporation, to manage that fund. They basically said, instead of leaving that to the provinces in Quebec, whose jurisdiction it is, we'd rather spend $2 billion to have it processed and administered by a private company. So that's money.
You say that's necessary for the millions of people who are accessing it. More than 80% of dentists are involved in it. Are they wrong?
Sorry, can you?
Sorry, they say that is justified because there are millions of Canadians who are accessing the program now. I'm not saying that there aren't issues with the accessibility of it, but by and large, the number of people who are taking the program up is quite high, and there are more than 80% of dental professionals who have now signed on. Again, kind of rectifying the issues that were at the start.
Yeah, but still, just the fact that they decided to go against the province's jurisdiction, and by doing so, they spent $2 billion that was given to a private corporation shows the non-respect they have for jurisdiction. This money could have just been transferred to the provinces, who already, in most cases, have a dental care plan that could have been just improved with that money, instead of creating something totally new, more costly, because they're doubling the work on 2 layers of government, creating red tape and bureaucracy. So that it's decisions like that also that are costly in the end, that could be reviewed, and where we could get money in order to do what the government has to do in its own field of jurisdiction, and OAS is one of them.
One final question for you, political in nature. Given what is going on right now, what's happening inside Parliament as well, the ultimatum that you issued, do you think there will be an election before Christmas?
I wouldn't bet on it, but it's all up to the parties we'll be negotiating with, to start with the Conservatives. If they want to have a non-confidence motion, maybe the filibuster in the House on the privilege question is something that they could look at. So that would be a start. And we opened the door to them in order to have negotiations after they maybe refrain from paralyzing the House, so we can start working again.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Madame Normandin, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.